there are almost 100 million people in the world that have apps on their phone that can use the Lightning Network. You can't scale down to that microtransaction level in the same way that you can on a peer-to-peer Lightning Network. People can send dollars from the US to dollars in El Salvador over the Lightning Network and never even know they're using Lightning. Now all of a sudden they don't have to pay a 3% processing fee to Visa. And they go, holy shit, our margin is now went from 1% to 4%. We just quadrupled our profit.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on the Talkanet Show. I'm your host Valerio. Today we have Konrad, who's also co-hosting. What's up, Konrad?
Yeah, what's up?
And actually you saw last episode Rafael also being here, which normally he's not co-hosting, but today I'm also very happy that Rafael is also making it to co-host with us. What's up, Rafael?
I'm happy to be back. Another one. Nice.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward for today's episode because we have a very special guest. Today we have a Lightning expert, and yes, you heard right. We're not talking about NFTs or other stuff today. We're talking about Bitcoin and especially Lightning Network. Today's guest also writes weekly blogs on the Lightning topic and also runs his own Lightning podcast. I'm very, very happy to have you here, Kevin Rooke. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about Lightning.
Yes, so Kevin, let's get right started. For anyone who doesn't know you yet and doesn't know what you do, could you give us a brief introduction about who you are and what exactly you do?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the crypto and Bitcoin space for a while now, 4 or 5 years maybe. Have basically worked in it in various jobs as my only jobs I've ever had. I've had a bit of a background in watching the Lightning Network develop since early 2018, hearing about it, watching it kind of from the sidelines for most of the last few years. And then just in the last year, it was actually around this time last year at the Bitcoin 2021 conference, where Jack Mallers came up on stage and announced this El Salvador Bitcoin law going into effect. And I was tuning into the Lightning Network growth charts as well and watching capacity tick up and start to tick up faster and faster and faster. And I was really trying to understand exactly why people were using this. And so I went down the rabbit hole on Lightning about a year ago. And I discovered that this is kind of going to be this next payment layer for Bitcoin. And it really has advantages that no other blockchain, including Bitcoin's blockchain, can compete with. And so based on that, I decided I'm going to focus entirely on Lightning. And the way I'm focusing on that now is I do some writing on Lightning. I have a Lightning podcast, and I invest in Lightning companies. So those are kind of my 3 focus points right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe for the beginning, for people like me who watch it and have no idea what Lightning exactly is, you briefly touched on it right now, but how would you explain it? Like, how does it work, and what are the practical benefits in the everyday life that this technology or blockchain has for people?
Sure. So I think I'm going to split that up because I think for the everyday person, how it works is maybe interesting for technical users, but I don't think they're ever going to even need to know that. Just the same way that no one knows how the internet works today. Like, very few people do. But for the like power users or technical users, basically it's a system of payment channels. So look at us 4 here. We could have payment channels between each other. I could have a payment channel to Conrad, but if I want to send Raphael money, I have to go through Conrad to Raphael, unless I have a payment channel with Raphael, right? And everyone here can have payment channels to a different set of users, and they enable money to flow through the network. The idea here with Lightning is, or one of the key innovations is that you can send money in any denomination down to a sat. So a sat today is a I believe it's 5% of 1 penny. So it's an amount that's so much, and you can send less than that. You can send amounts that are way too small to be supported by fiat payment rails, or you can send amounts that are able to be supported by fiat payment rails, but they're instant and they're free, basically. If I have a direct channel to anyone on the network, I never have to pay any fees. If I have to go through a few participants on the network to get to my end destination, I may incur some small fees along the way, but those fees have zero fixed cost. They have a variable cost. Depends on how much I'm trying to send, but the key is that there's an elimination of a fixed cost, and it's instant. So every payment we do today has a fixed fee associated with it. When was the last time you made a credit card payment for 10 cents or 50 cents?
Yeah.
It never happens. And the reason it never happens is because every credit card payment that's processed has a fee rate of 2.9% plus 30 cents. And it's that 30 cents that gets really ugly when you're talking about small payments.
Yeah.
As a $10 payment has a fee of, well, let's do it this way. What's a $1 payment at 2.9% plus 30 cents? You're losing 33%. Your 2.9% plus your 30 cents is now 30% of $1. So 33% of that payment goes to the payment processor. Now that obviously scales up. It gets better as you go higher. So that's why you see payments at $10, $100, $1,000 done on credit cards. It's fine. But when you're talking about smaller payments, it just doesn't work. And then you get into the issue of fragmented payment systems that are closed. You guys in Europe have one payment system. I have a different payment system in Canada. My payment system that I use in Canada, we have a bank system called Interac e-transfers. That works between Canadian banks, and I can generally send money to anyone for about $1 or $2. It's close to free. It's not quite instant, but it's kind of close. You can do it in like half an hour. But I can't send that money to you guys, and you can't send money to me through your system. So everyone has these fragmented systems, often locked by KYC. There's restrictions on when you can use it, how much you can send. There's often minimum limits. You have to spend at least this amount. It's just a very restricted. I think about the payment spectrum of everything you can do with money, and credit cards may offer this like limited spectrum of $10 to $1,000. A wire transfer may offer a spectrum of like, you wouldn't do a wire transfer less than maybe $1,000, and you could go up to maybe $1 million or a few $1 million. Any higher than that, and your bank starts wondering why you're sending millions of dollars. You have all these different, every different payment method has its own little spectrum. Cash, physical cash, you might do down to a penny, but you're probably not going to be walking around with more than like $1,000 of physical cash in your pocket. You just don't want that issue to have to deal with. So every single payment has their own little spectrum. Bitcoin now has a spectrum that goes from 0.000001 cents to billions of dollars. It goes across the entire spectrum. You can now send any amount of value to anyone in the world at any moment for basically, a very marginal variable rate. So typically that's like about 0.5% or something. But it's 0.5% if you're sending $1 billion and 0.5% if you're sending a penny, which it separates itself from not only fiat payment methods, but with the Lightning Network, it separates itself from crypto payment methods, where you can't use any other network to settle. Some of the smaller networks say, oh, well, look, we have instant settlement, we have no fees. Well, they also have no users and they have no liquidity. So you can't send your billions of dollars. You can't send hundreds of millions of dollars. You can't settle that amount. Then you talk about some of the busier networks. They have high gas fees, or they even have the ones with small gas fees. The fees are often fixed. You can't scale down to that micro transaction level in the same way that you can on a peer-to-peer Lightning network.
Yep.
So that's kind of the high level of how the Lightning Network works and why I think it might be a really interesting innovation.
Okay, and how does someone access that? Like, is there apps? How do you, as an everyday person, get access to that and use that?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the most underappreciated aspects of the Lightning Network. Right now, there are almost 100 million people in the world that have apps on their phone that can use the Lightning Network, and almost no one recognizes it. Now, 70 million of those are Cash App users. Cash App has recently integrated the Lightning Network, so anyone can send and receive on Lightning through Cash App. There are about 70 million people. Most of those are in the US. You have Chivo in El Salvador, has 4 million users. All of them can now use Lightning Network as they wish. Strike is a service in the US. I don't know how many users they have, but they're the kind of remittance rails being used. One of their first use cases was sending money back and forth between US and El Salvador citizens. You have Paxful. Paxful has about 7 million users, and they have Lightning Network integrations enabled. So you have close to 100 million people now that can send money on the Lightning Network. We're starting to see, in addition to that, flourishing ecosystem of applications being built on Lightning. We're now seeing social media sites roll out with Lightning enabled, where instead of using Reddit and upvoting people, you click upvote and it sends them a couple sats, and they earn money for that. So you get a viral post on Reddit that gets 50,000 upvotes. Well, great. Like your upvotes don't mean anything. On Lightning, you get 50,000 sats and you go, oh, great. It's $25. I'm going to go buy a lunch with that.
And you're getting that money without like intermediate party taking like a percentage cut of it, right?
Exactly.
I can imagine that's also very interesting for Twitch streamers and something like that, because they get really like small amounts donated. And
And how about
the try is podcasting is on Lightning. Like my Lightning podcast, I use something called Fountain. And Fountain's an app that lets me kind of manage my podcast, lets anyone listen to a podcast, just like Spotify. But people can also send in sats, and they can send in messages, and they can send in comments. So there's a public feed of comments that comes on my show. No other podcasting app in the world has public comments on the feed. You have to go to YouTube for that, or you have to do it on Twitter. You can directly engage with your audience on Fountain or on any other Lightning podcasting app, and people can send in sats. And I've earned about 500,000 sats in the first 6 months. Almost all of that came in the last 3 months. A few $100. There's money moving through, and this is all voluntary. These are just listeners saying, great work. We want to support the show. Here you go. Keep creating good content.
Yep.
And how about the other commercial use cases where Lightning can be implemented? Because, for example, when El Salvador was accepting Bitcoin as a payment system, like a payment option in their country, a lot of businesses had concerns that they'll be forced to pay a lot of fees in order to process transactions. So how does it work in terms of, for example, McDonald's in El Salvador? Are they using Lightning Network, or is it some other solution?
I believe McDonald's is. I don't know for sure. I haven't been to El Salvador yet. But for processing payments on Lightning, your costs are basically zero. You just have a mobile app. Like I believe El Salvador is using primarily the Chivo app. And so if you're a merchant, say you're McDonald's, and I'm going to you, I just scan your QR code, send you my payment, and you receive it with basically no fees. Merchants across the board, when Lightning adoption arrives at a merchant level, and this is going to take some time because Visa has a very strong, they've got a stronghold on that right now. And for good reason, they do a pretty good job. And it's very hard to break into a system when every single merchant in the world has this terminal that accepts Visa cards. But over time, as that happens, and as that kind of moat breaks down a little bit, merchants are going to be seeing 3 to 5 to 10%, depending on what their average transaction volume is or average transaction size. They're going to see 3 to 5 to 10% cost reductions. a grocery store is all of a sudden, grocery stores that have like 1% margins. They're operating on the slimmest margin because they're competing with dozens of other grocery stores in the area. Now all of a sudden they don't have to pay a 3% processing fee to Visa, and they go, "Holy shit! We just grew our margin is now went from 1% to 4%. We just quadrupled our profit. It's insane."
Wow.
It all comes from just this like 3% processing fee.
So, I mean, the advantage of the technology is that you have less fees that you have to pay, right? In general. So, what business opportunities like the one you just told us do you see that people watching this podcast are into crypto and they maybe want to start something and they recognize, okay, the lighting technology is an opportunity. So what business opportunities do you see that people can take advantage of right now using this technology?
Well, if someone's trying to build on Lightning, I think this is the time. This is the time where it is now proving itself to be a payment system that is continually getting more and more adoption. It's got this like organic bottom-up adoption as well as a top-down adoption from large companies and countries like Square and El Salvador. It's proving itself to be useful without any token incentives or airdrops or inflation rewards or anything like that. People are just using it because it solves a problem. So for builders, now you have this opportunity where you recognize there's already product market fit. People are already using it without any other ulterior motive. No one's getting rich off of like some lightning airdrop or anything. It's just people using it because it improves their lives. So now you have all these opportunities to use money to start to like think about how to grow a community, how to build a business, how there's all sorts of different incentives you can use to build a business around Lightning. One example is the social media example I just mentioned. There's a site called Stacker News. Now, Stacker News is basically like a Reddit on Lightning, just to keep it simple. What they're doing though is, how Reddit earns money they earn money from ads on all the different subreddits. There's ads, and all that money goes to Reddit.
Yeah.
Well, Stacker News is trying something new. They're saying, well, we're building this community from scratch. We're starting this right now it's a Bitcoin focused community, but over time it may expand to other verticals. They're saying, why don't we just send the money that we earn from ads? They have a job board, so companies advertise on the board. They're sending those sats back to users. Every single sat that comes into their business right now is being blasted out to all the users. Wow. In proportion to the value that they provide. So if you're constantly going on this Stacker News site and you're posting great stuff, you get lots of upvotes. You guys may post a link to this podcast and may get some upvotes, and all of a sudden you get some sats. Well, you're also getting a trust score on the site. Your ranking on the site is rising, and every day the revenue that comes in from the site, you're now going to get more of it. And as you continue to create more and more content, you get a larger and larger share. Now, if you say, I'm going to create bad content, I'm just going to be a troll, or I'm going to spam the board or whatever. Well, there's a 1 sat fee to post. So you're going to lose money as you try and spam. And then you're not going to get any trust, and you're not going to get any share of the revenue. So they're trying this is one example of a business that's trying a new model to grow a community around Lightning. And there's going to be tons of these. These are just, it's a totally new way to monetize a community because you can now use Lightning and send money in any denomination. You can onboard people in brand new ways that were just never possible before in Web 2.
So basically, with the social media apps right now, if you're on Instagram, you're selling your attention for free to Facebook or Meta, and they resell it to their advertisers. And now basically they build a platform where you can make money just by being on the platform and producing content and so on, right?
100%. Yeah. Look at Facebook right now. I believe in the last year, I was just looking at the numbers a while ago. In the last year in North America, do you know how much Facebook earns from the average North American user?
Per year, day?
Per year, yeah. So in the last 12 months.
I'm just taking a wild guess. I have no idea. $500.
Not quite. It's over $100, but it's over $100 for a product that's free.
Yeah.
So, and this is just the average user. I'm sure there are users that are making Facebook $500, but on average, it's about, I think it's about 1 to 200. And it's for a product that's free. So Facebook is earning this money, comes into Facebook, and Facebook says, okay, screw you. You're not getting any of it. We're keeping it all. And to be fair, like, there was never a good system for them, even if they wanted to. There was never a good system in place for them to distribute that money in very tiny amounts instantly. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
YouTube sends some of that money back, but they send it back in, if you're on YouTube, you have a $100 minimum threshold you have to hit to get ad revenue. For some people, that takes months. And if that takes months, you're not getting your money for like 100 days. And then you get $100 blasted into your bank account. So that's their way around that. It's not ideal, though. It's not instant, and it's not in any amount. And it's only for creators on YouTube. You're not getting, no one's getting paid on YouTube for watching an ad. And that's something that's not possible on Lightning.
I mean, imagine posting a reel on Instagram, it goes viral, and as it goes viral, you're getting money on your bank account, on your Lightning account. That's
100%.
I think Brave allows something like this, where you have BAT tokens and you can just donate them to Twitter creators, and some other platforms allow this as well. So I think it's kind of similar about what you're saying. Like with Lightning, it's just way better and more efficient, I guess.
Yeah, on Lightning, what you're using the money that everyone has already recognized is the soundest form of money on the planet. It's the money that it's the money that Michael Saylor is buying billions of dollars of. You get the same money. It's not like you have to get money in some other token or some other thing that you eventually convert back into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like right from the get-go, you're earning the best money available, which I think is a really important addition there.
I think that's the key difference to Twitch. No, I'm not familiar about Twitch, but aren't you getting paid in some Twitch tokens or something, Conrad?
I think you're getting paid straight up in dollars, like in the currency in the country you're based in. So, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, but Kevin, what about the company itself, the social media platform? How do they make money if they give away all the money?
Oh, right now they're not making money. Right now they're using the money to fund growth. Right, like think of that as a marketing budget. But over time, maybe they say, hey, we're going to take 10% of that now. 90% is still going to users, but maybe we take a 10% cut. I mean, YouTube today takes a 45% cut on creator earnings. So even if they say, hey, we're going to take 10%, they're a much less intrusive version of YouTube. Or I don't know, Reddit takes 100%, right? So
okay, but what if, for example, YouTube increase the amount of money you make? So let's say that they would raise the percentage to 90%, so they will be straight competitors to the platforms being built on Lightning Network. Wouldn't it be a big threat for them? Because in the end, these companies have to make money somehow in order to just survive, because people want to work for free.
Yeah.
So as you said, at some point they'll have to gain some percentage of the revenue. And don't you think that just big social media apps can give more money to people while they still maintain their, 5 or 10%?
I don't think anyone at YouTube will ever greenlight the objective of dropping revenue by if you use this example of 90% goes to creators, that means YouTube's revenue goes from 45% of earnings to 10%. Wow. When you talk about the scale of billions of dollars, these businesses are not built to accommodate a multi-billion-dollar loss, a permanent loss. It's like them shooting themselves in the foot. There's no way they pass that kind of motion to drop their revenue in that way just to kind of preemptively get ahead of competition. So I think a lot of the innovation has to come from smaller companies. Over time, they're going to have to take a cut. Every business needs to make money. That's hasn't changed for sure. But this is a new mechanism to get people on board and get people excited and get people interested. All the mechanisms that were used back when Facebook and Google and YouTube were launching in the early days, those tools now you can't compete against Facebook by trying to do what Facebook did 20 years ago. That ship has sailed. Facebook's got this network effect. You have to try some new mechanism to get new users, and paying them directly, I think, is going to be one of them. I think that's going to be a new way you can get users on board. And we're seeing this with other exchanges and applications as well. There's an exchange in Canada called ShakePay that they pay you every time you shake your phone, Bitcoin. That's a tool they're using to grow their user base.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you shake your phone, and every day you shake a little. If you shake twice in a row, you get a little bit more the next day. If you shake 3 days in a row, you get a little more the next day. If you forget to shake one day, you drop back down to the first day, and you get that smaller amount. Every day, you just shake your phone.
How much do you get though?
I've earned 3.5 million sats.
Really?
So $1,500 or something like that. They make
for shaking your phone.
Have made thousands of dollars from shaking their phone.
What?
Wow, that's incredible.
And that's a tool, like for them, it makes sense because you can only access it if you refer a friend or have been referred by a friend. So it rapidly spreads word of mouth.
Wow.
They pay out people, but they also get new customers.
Yep.
They now have 1 million users in a country of 30 million, for a Bitcoin.
Okay.
And what do they sell? Like, because they can't be just giving away money forever.
Well, they're a Bitcoin exchange.
Oh, right.
So they're actually, and since they're a profitable business, they're doing really well. They're one of Canada's largest exchanges.
I mean, it makes sense, but from what I'm seeing, it's also like a different way of promoting your product. For example, instead of paying influencers. So for example, I know that mobile apps have very high cost per acquisition for like a player. They are willing to pay up to even $400 or $300 per user. But instead of giving this money to like a big YouTube channel, they could be giving this money directly to people, which is basically, I think, what you just said with shaking your phone, etc. So they could also pay like a big Twitter influencer a few K or like 10K for a post, but instead they're splitting the money and giving away to particular people.
Yeah. I mean, this is just Lightning enables new ways to monetize communities, to send money between people. This is one example, like these kind of growth hacks or what have you, like for growing applications. Like that's one example of what Lightning can do. But there's many more that don't even involve growth hacks or anything. Like there's people who are earning right now for like identifying things, Google CAPTCHAs.
Yeah.
So Google is using that data to train their machine learning models, right? They're saying, oh, you identified this as a boat, therefore Google is now, in all their, prototype cars they're working on, anytime they see that boat, they're going to know, oh, that's a boat, right? But you're doing that for free right now. Every time we log into a site and have to do a CAPTCHA, we're training Google's models for free. There are companies now that are allowing you, Stackwork is one of them, that allows you, anyone in the world can now train these models and earn for it. Companies are willing to pay to have you train their models. And basically all you're doing is identifying, a picture of hot sauce or a picture of a boat or a picture of some random thing that's very easy for any human to identify. And you're just kind of training a computer to learn what that thing is, like which image has a cat in it, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Interesting. So I see like this whole thing is a great opportunity for newcomers in the social media area, platform area. But how do you see the big players like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and so on adapt to this technology? If if you think they will, how and over what like time period, and how will they like implement all this? Do you have an idea?
I think that their incentive is to not implement it. They have great businesses right now. They have no reason to change them. They have no reason to change their fee structure or lower their revenues or anything. Like they're doing really well. They're among the best businesses in the world, and I think it would be a real challenge to convince any one of them to change until you get to a critical mass where they just have to change. They're just losing the battle, and they must keep up with the times. That may be years away, but I think that moment comes, and I think eventually everyone recognizes that this is the best solution for making payments in person, on the internet, in any setting. You can now send any amount of value for basically nothing instantly. And that's something that's really powerful. So I think the traditional, giants, tech giants, whatever you want to call them, will pick up on this stuff eventually, but only once they have to. I think it's going to be the newer kind of lightning native companies that step up, make this a reality, and compel the others to adopt it as well.
Yeah, amazing. And how are you personally over the next like years planning to take advantage of this new technology? Like you told in the beginning, like what you're doing right now and so on, but like, do you have like a vision of the next like 2, 5, 10 years on what you want to build within this space?
I mean, I want to do whatever I can to help push this space forward. For me, like right now, the highest leverage things I think I can do is creating content and investing in Lightning companies and helping them actually, like, helping do product design, helping give feedback, helping introduce them to other people in the Lightning space, really hands-on, and just trying to be that support system that early stage founders can use to help get some traction and get their business off the ground. This stuff, it's coming. It's something that's like, I don't see any system that can compete against Lightning on all of the metrics that we've kind of just discussed in this call. And I think it's only a matter of time before we get this critical mass of adoption. And once that happens, we're off to the races, and there's no slowing that down, because it's a really powerful network effect of people. And this is one of the differentiators between Lightning and many other blockchains and layer 2 solutions and things like that. Is a lot of the other crypto stuff is a network effect of capital, not a network effect of people. So you hear about, project A or B or C or whatever launches some new DeFi product and they get $1 billion of TVL. Well, what happens if 300 million of that is from one person? What happens if 100 million is from another person? What happens if it's really only like 1,000 people that have contributed to that project? It's not really interesting. You got 1,000 people, like, especially as, maybe that's, acceptable if it's a DeFi product, but if it's trying to be a payment system, if it's trying to be a tool for moving money back and forth, you need other people to pay. That's the important thing about having a payment system, is that it doesn't work unless you can pay people, unless you can send to people or receive from people. So you really need a mass of people. And this is something different from a lot of kind of layer 1 solutions, where, like, on Bitcoin blockchain, people optimize for a network effect of capital. We want as much money in space as possible. We don't care if 1 billion people adopt it. We just need Michael Saylor to buy $1 billion or more, right? But on Lightning, it all of a sudden matters. You can't just have Michael Saylor on Lightning. If he's the only guy there, when was the last time you paid him? You're not going to pay him. He's not going to pay you. It's not going to work. You need millions, billions of people. And it doesn't even matter that they're small amounts, because as long as you have the ability to pay or to send and to receive, all of a sudden you have this critical network effect, which is kind of a differentiator between it and other projects.
Yeah.
So all you're saying makes like the Lightning Network look like it's too good to be true. So I'm just thinking, is it really the flawless system, or are there any threats to this, like possible threats?
I mean, it's not a perfect system. It doesn't, like right now, I think about a year ago when I started studying it, about half of my transactions wouldn't go through. Network reliability depends on having liquidity between these different channels. So remember this example of like us four having a channel. If I've got all my liquidity on one side of a channel, I can only send money in one way, or I have to close that channel and start a new one. There's definitely challenges in onboarding that liquidity and making it so that payments are reliable. But this is something that has been radically improved in the last year. Now it's quite rare to see a payment fail, especially if you're using like a custodial wallet or a mainstream app, or some business that is dedicated to building on Lightning. They're typically quite good with managing their node and managing liquidity to make sure that at any moment someone can send and someone can receive. There are other issues. I don't know that I'm the most technical person. I know I'm not actually, but I don't know that I can kind of speak to those well enough. It's definitely not a perfect solution. I don't think there's any perfect solution, but I think this is the best solution for making payments on the internet.
Yeah. So you also mentioned before that you're investing in Lightning startups, right? So, I mean, you definitely have a good knowledge about all the different companies out there currently. What are your top 3 Lightning startups that are building something great in the future?
Well, so I have to say, the company that started me on my Lightning journey is the first one I invested in, and that is Fountain. They are the Lightning podcast company that I mentioned. And I actually started my Lightning podcast as an investor. I decided I'm going to try and start on this platform and see how it works, see if it actually works. And it did, and it still does. And every month is, higher and higher earnings and sats, and it's just like it's snowballing here.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely one that I think everyone should be using. If you're a podcast creator, it's a no-brainer. There's zero downside. I mean, anyone listening to my podcast has no idea that I'm even earning sats. It doesn't interfere with advertising. It doesn't interfere with anything. It's just an additional source of revenue.
But are you getting paid sats by just the amount of views you get or upvote, or do they tip you? Do they need to actively tip you?
They choose to send in money. So
Right.
they can either send in money per minute. So every minute they listen to the show, money just streams into you, or they can send in a single amount. They can say, hey, this was a really good point you made at 22 minutes into the show. Here you go. Here's 1,000 sats. So yeah, you can send in different ways.
So it's not that, for example, we have our podcast on YouTube, one of the platforms. It's not that we can just like set our Strike link in the YouTube description box, and they can because they're also actively choosing to tip us something via the Strike platform. But you're also saying that there's the possibility that they can pay instantly by the amount of time they're watching.
Yeah. So if you have a Strike link, you can accept payments, but you can't. I don't believe you can accept messages, and you wouldn't be able to accept like real time as they listen payments. That would be something you'd probably use Fountain for.
All right.
But yeah,
Right.
any podcaster could set that up. It's
I mean, afterwards you will need to help us to get one. To get us on.
Absolutely,
on
100%.
as well.
And there's a really cool feature that is right now in production, but I think is going to get a lot better. And one thing that I'm seeing some podcasters do is when you have multiple hosts like this, and even when you have guests, you can set splits in the show so that anytime someone sends money, it instantly blasts out to the three of you. Maybe you all get equal amounts. Maybe on the next episode, one of you doesn't come on as a co-host. There's only two co-hosts. Then it can be 50% on that specific episode. And if someone comes back to the previous episode, still blast out to all three of you. Then if you have a podcast producer, you can say, hey, podcast producer, I want you to make some money when we make money. I want you to do well when we do well. You're going to get 5% or 10% or 20% of every show earning. You can bring on guests and say, hey, guests, you're contributing value to this show. You get to earn 10%. And all of a sudden you can have like an entire ecosystem of people that are incentivized to create a better show because they're actually getting the money for it and they can instantly get it. It's not like, all the money goes into one account and then you have to manually distribute it to a bunch of people. It blasts out automatically. So that's really
already
cool.
happening, or?
That's already happening. It's going to get a lot easier though. Right now you have to have node addresses and stuff like that, but in the coming weeks, it'll be a lot easier to set that up. It'll be a very instant process.
What's the name?
So this is all done on Fountain.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so my question would be, how do you find these platforms? Because like obviously when someone is an early adopter, there's a huge possibility to earn a lot. So how do you actually go about finding these projects that are actively being built on Lightning?
Yeah, the Lightning community is pretty small right now, and it's quite, everyone's really supportive. And so everyone's sharing new projects all the time. I would say, for keeping up with new innovation in Lightning, you'd probably want to, the Stacker news site I mentioned is like a Reddit. That's probably the place to go because it's kind of like the front page of Bitcoin news. So anyone launching a new company or anyone launching a new product is going to be on there. And you'll kind of see what ends up on the top of the pages. But yeah, right now there's dozens of companies building in Lightning, maybe hundreds. Really, like we're getting many competitors show up in all the different verticals right now, and it's still very, very early. But it's exciting to see how many people are starting to innovate on Bitcoin. When the mainstream narrative for the last few years has been, you can't build anything on Bitcoin. It's like a digital rock or something, right?
Yeah, so it was advice for users, but how about advice for someone who wants to build? Would you recommend the same place or like some other resources in order to learn more how to get started or maybe become a developer?
Yeah, so if you want to become a developer, or if you want to like build on Lightning, there's a few good programs that are live. I think one is called Base 58, and one is called Chain Code Labs. I believe I got those right. And these are like education programs for developers to help get started and build on Bitcoin and build on Lightning. And so those are ones that I often hear recommended in the Lightning space. I'd probably say start with those, and the whole Lightning community is pretty receptive to people starting new ideas and having new projects. So I'd also say reach out to the founders of Lightning projects today and say, hey, I want to build in Lightning too. Check out my GitHub, check out all the stuff I've built in the past.
Yeah.
They're pretty open to chatting about anything. Like all the people I have had on my Lightning podcast, 99% of them I've never even met. They just didn't know who I was, and I just DM them and say, hey, would you want to talk about what you're building? And everyone's pretty receptive. They say yes typically.
Yeah, if you're also a user and you look for cool information about Lightning Network, you can just simply follow Kevin on Twitter, right? What's your Twitter handle, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm at Ke Rooke on Twitter. That's KEROOKE.
Exactly. You're posting a lot of cool charts about Lightning adoption, right? And I just saw recently a pretty cool chart about the Kraken node, right? The Kraken Lightning channel. Could you talk about it very quickly?
Yeah.
Because Kraken is pretty new. They just started now, I think. Announcement yesterday or something.
Yeah, so they launched their Lightning integration recently, but Kraken's like one of the OG Bitcoin exchanges. Like I think they've been around since 2011. Like they're really, really,
Yep.
you know, I don't know if it's 2011, but it's somewhere in that range.
Yep.
They've been like one of the, biggest exchanges for a long time, one of the most reputable names in the space. And so it's really cool to see them on Lightning. And I think what this is going to do is push other exchanges to also prioritize Lightning. Right now, we see them, they're at about, I think at last glance, I just saw this morning, they're at above 62 Bitcoin of public capacity on their node. For context, there's only about 10 nodes on the Lightning network that have more than 100 Bitcoin. Actually, I don't even think it's 10. It may only be like 6 or 8. The largest of which is one of Bitfinex's nodes. Bitfinex has 2 nodes. Combined, their public capacity is about 600 Bitcoin. And so that is kind of the largest source of funds moving in and off of Lightning. So if anyone is a node operator, or if they are a user on Lightning and they want to get funds off, they want to turn funds into cash, or if they have cash and they want to get on Lightning, they're typically using one of these like more larger nodes. An exchange node would be a really easy alternative for someone. They can just simply go to an exchange. You can go to Bitfinex or you can go to Kraken, deposit your dollars, deposit your euros, whatever it is, and withdraw Bitcoin on Lightning, and you're instantly on the network. So I think these nodes are going to become pretty large hubs of activity. Bitfinex already is the largest, and Kraken's quickly approaching that. I imagine Kraken will get to the same level, or roughly the same level as Bitfinex, maybe even larger over time. But it's cool to see, because now all of a sudden Kraken has their millions of users that now have access to Lightning too. And so with every additional exchange or market participant that comes on board, you grow the number of people that have access to Lightning.
Yeah.
And, as I said before, we're quickly approaching 100 million. And the next time that you hear a big company announcing they're integrating Lightning, or if Coinbase integrates Lightning, or Binance, or anyone like that, like the pie just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that is now an addressable market for developers. Developers can come in and say, hey, now I have this group of 100 million people that I can now target. I can build for them because they all have access to the Lightning network. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Kraken implementing Lightning is very, very huge. As you said, one of the OG exchanges. But to be honest, I was a little surprised, because I expected something like Binance or Coinbase to implement it first, because I mean, they're very smart guys. And for example, also the NFTs and stuff, Coinbase and Binance were one of the first exchanges to have like a whole section on NFTs, which Kraken, I think, has not even implemented yet. But yeah, I'm also looking forward to other exchanges implementing Lightning solutions. Rafael, do you have another question, I think?
Not directly to that subject, but maybe I would like to dive a little bit in your background. Like you told us that, or wait a second, Conrad and Valerio, do you have a question about this topic right now?
No, you can go on.
Okay. So you told us that you fully started to focus on Lightning like a year ago, is that right?
Yeah.
How did it get to that point? Like, what were you doing before? What was your entrance into the whole crypto community? And what was that like journey like? And how did it come that you fully focus on Lightning?
I first got into Bitcoin in 2017. I want to say around March 2017. And I had met a guy who was a professional poker player at college. He was, just really, really smart guy. And I kind of knew, I didn't know what he was talking about half the time, but I was just always in the back of my head. I was like, I got to keep up with this guy. I got to keep tabs on him. He's onto something. And he was talking about Bitcoin. He was talking about making all this money playing poker, and he was making the money in Bitcoin. And so I'm like, I don't really know how to play poker very well, I don't even know what the word Bitcoin means. And I eventually got him to I got to join his like underground poker ring, and I got to meet all of his other, you know, really smart poker buddies, and all of them were also talking about Bitcoin. And so it was a light bulb kind of went off in my head that I had to focus on that and learn more exactly what it was at first. And then once I learned it, it was like, okay, this is a real innovation that is going to change a lot of things. And I quickly went down the rabbit hole, and I've worked in crypto shortly after that, and then started my own business. And all of a sudden, like, you know, 4 or 5 years have gone by, and but all of that time, like, there were moments where I have definitely entertained altcoins and some of the stuff that is being built outside of Bitcoin. But I keep coming back to I think the importance of what Bitcoin is building, and the stuff that's being built on Bitcoin is not, there's no match for that right now today. I just don't think that the problems being solved by NFTs or even DeFi applications are nearly as interesting, out of personal preference. That I don't think they're as big of a problem. I don't think they're worth spending as much time on. I don't think they're going to be as big of an opportunity. And so I've been fully convinced in the last year that Lightning is this important payment layer to kind of fulfill Bitcoin's vision of being money for everyone. And it's, you know, it's a reserve asset, it's a payment system, it's a tool for sending any amount of money anywhere, for storing any amount of money anywhere. And I just think that's a huge improvement to the world. So that's kind of why my focus is entirely on Bitcoin and Lightning.
Interesting. What business did you start in the crypto space?
So I started my own kind of agency, just a small agency business in 2018. But I previously worked at I've worked with now 2 of Canada's top crypto exchanges. Fortunately, none of those were Quadriga, but I've definitely been, you know, that was kind of my first entry point into crypto. Is actually I had purchased my first little bit of Bitcoin on Quadriga, and then worked for a competitor, and ultimately another competitor in what is now Canada's largest exchange.
Interesting. Yeah. What kind of agency, like what service were you offering?
Mostly like marketing and product and design stuff. It was quite varied, really just whatever businesses needed help with. Nice. Because a lot of the companies in the space were super small.
Yeah. How do you, for someone entering the space right now, what would you tell them? How could they start building a business in that space if they start from zero and they just want to get their foot into the space? How do they find clients? What kind of clients could they get?
I think the number one piece of advice I would have is find a way to help someone else. And that can be in whatever capacity you work in. If you're a developer, find a way to contribute to some open source projects. There's like every project's an open source project in the Bitcoin space. Like you just have like this enormous opportunity to add value to people's lives. If you're a marketer or if you're an investor, or find a way to make introductions for people, find a way to share people's stories, find a way to educate people. You do that enough and people will find you, and the opportunities start to find you. So that's, I think it's paradoxical, but it's the way that I think is the fastest way to, get up to speed and get interest from people and start to like build a business, is first send that value out to people and help them.
Yeah.
And it finds its way back to you eventually.
Amazing.
Yeah. A quick question. By the way, my camera died, but it doesn't matter. It's my voice is still here. You mentioned in 2017 you were having this poker friend, right, from college. So does this mean you just got out of college very recently, like a couple of years ago?
I graduated in 2017. Yeah.
Wait, so how old are you right now?
I'm 28 now. That was grad school. So I did 4 years of undergrad and then 2 years of grad school.
All right. Wow, super young. And also you also mentioned in 2017 there was like this one point, or like where you were really convinced about Bitcoin and the technology. But what exactly was it that made you believe so much in the future? And was there like a particular point or something in particular that made you like be so convinced and sure that like that will be the future?
I don't know if I was convinced it would be well, I quickly got really excited about it. I remember that and this was probably in like May of 2017 now. I was like really, really excited. And I remember feeling so excited about this innovation and never having had that feeling about any other innovation in the past.
Wow.
Maybe Tesla was the only other time that I felt that way.
Yeah.
And so I recognized that. I kind of looked into myself and said, whoa, hold on, Kevin, you're really excited about this one. You have not been this excited about hardly anything in the past. And so that gave me the confidence to continue pursuing it. And as I kept pursuing it, as I kept discovering more, I continued to learn that, there's really cool stuff being built. There's really smart people building.
Right.
And that was kind of what, I think it was actually the book that I read in May of 2017 was Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper. And I think that was one of the first ones where I read it cover to cover and my mind was kind of blown. And I was like, this is a real deal. This has been going on for a long time. It's just getting started. No one was talking about it in my circles other than that poker guy. Like I had just finished an MBA in business school. Like no one ever mentioned the word Bitcoin once. No one. And this is an MBA. You're supposed to be like paying a lot of money for like an introduction into business and to hopefully get like a strong education of the business space. And like no one said the word Bitcoin once. And it's going to be such a key part of business moving forward. So, I felt like I was early at that point.
Yeah. Would you say that university helped you somehow with like in your whole career in terms of Bitcoin and Lightning Network?
I don't know that it had I don't know that my classes helped at all. I would say that no, they like, I would not go through the university classes now if I could relive everything. I really enjoyed, I competed in university, I ran track, and I would do that again in a heartbeat. Obviously you meet a lot of great friends and people at university. That's great too. But no, the classes didn't teach me a whole lot. Really, it was just the biggest thing that I got out of my grad school experience was meeting that guy at the bus stop talking about poker. I never met the guy. Like we just saw each other at a bus stop and we only started talking because the bus was late. If the bus was on time, I wouldn't have even talked to the guy. So, that was the biggest help for me in university. And it's just such a random encounter. It's like, there's no way you can predict that with any guarantee.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I love stories like that because like completely random and it changes your whole life.
Yeah,
completely.
100%.
Great. So I guess we start to wrap up this amazing podcast. I'll do it normally Valerio does it, but we can't see him. So, he's back. Kind of back.
Well, can I ask one more question? Wait, Rafael, before you end the podcast. And so you talked about the different applications that are built on the Lightning Network, right? But maybe for all the entrepreneurs out there, is there one industry or one implementation area that is not yet being built on that you can think of would be a super cool idea to build something on it?
I think every app can become a Lightning app. I think anytime there's an involvement of payments, anytime you're paying someone or someone's paying you, there's a way to make that on Lightning. And often that way, well, I don't want to say often, there could be a way to make it a lot better on Lightning. And I think people are going to start to discover these ways. So we've mentioned some of the streaming, some of the small amounts, some of the ability to send value in, an upvote or a like or a retweet or something. Instead of paying that as a Twitter like or a Twitter retweet, it's paying in sats. There's gaming applications where you can earn sats for playing Counter-Strike, playing mobile games. Like there's all sorts of ways in which you can now earn sats. You can do micro tasks. You can do the community is consistently coming up with brand new ideas. And I imagine there's a lot to be discovered. I don't have one in particular that I'm like, someone's got to build that. But I think it's gonna transcend everything. Like talk about you open up the app on your phone and see like what are the apps you use today. Well, there's Spotify, and it's like, oh great, we got a Lightning alternative for that. We have messaging. Well, there's Lightning alternatives for that. We have a browser, Safari. There's Lightning alternatives for that being built. There's a Lightning browser called Impervious being built. You have your health app or your fitness app or something. I hope one day there's a Lightning app for that. Where you can earn money for staying fit. And this could, maybe it's a revenue that comes from health insurers that are willing to pay you if you're uploading your Apple Health data showing that you're walking 10,000 steps a day. Well, now you're less costly to insure, and they can send out payments to you every single day. Maybe it's competitions with your friends. You can kind of like compete with each other to see who can, run the most miles in a week. Each put up 10,000 sats, and the winner takes a pot. There's going to be sports betting, stuff like that. There's going to be all sorts of applications, like truly endless. It's anywhere that anything that touches payments can be a Lightning application and will be. So I'd encourage people to think really broadly about that and think about, what they are specifically interested in. Because chances are, if they have a particular interest, that interest can be built on Lightning.
Yeah. Or also the question is, I mean, you touched on being fit, right? You can ask about who's shaking their phone enough, right? Because you need to be fit to shake your phone, right? But I mean, all these applications, it requires people to firstly know about the Lightning, right? And also believe in Bitcoin, because if you don't believe in Bitcoin, you're not going to use Lightning, right? And be convinced about it. But right now we're not at this point, right, where people know about it and believe in it and are convinced about it, right? What do you think needs to happen that we reach such a tipping point where people actually know about it and also believe in it, right?
Yeah. So what you described is kind of the way that I'm sure all of us got into crypto. It's like we first study it, we first learn about what it is, then we go buy some, then we start to learn how to secure it. Then we on Lightning, you learn how to move it to Lightning, then you learn how to spend it. And it's a very painful process all the way through. It takes years of learning and studying. And, we spend our lives doing this. And this is like not the way that most people are going to, be introduced. I think right now there are Lightning applications that people can get onboarded to, especially gaming. Gaming's one where you don't ever have to fund an account with anything. You can just start earning without even knowing what Lightning is, without even knowing what sats are or what Bitcoin is. All you know is you're earning money. And that can onboard people without them ever knowing about Lightning. Talk about remittances, like with Strike. People can send dollars from the US to dollars in El Salvador over the Lightning network and never even know they're using Lightning. So I think that is going to be a big driver of activity moving forward, is that people are going to start using it without even knowing they're using it, or without ever having to, understand it, right? Like that's eventually we got to that point in the internet where you just kind of set up your computer, you turn it on, and you got internet access. You didn't have to go through this like mind-numbing process of figuring out how the internet worked beforehand, and like it just works. You open up your iPhone, and day one, it just works. So I think that's going to start to become a prominent way people will be onboarded, is through earning and often earning without even knowing that they're using Bitcoin or Lightning.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Rafael, you can do the wrap up if you want.
I mean, it was great talking to you, getting to know you, talking about these subjects. But it was very interesting for me because I had no idea what Lightning was before. And I feel like you gave me a good understanding. And yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for being on. And I'm looking forward to following whatever you're doing in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Right.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and have a good one.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, guys.
Take care.
Good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.